Alrighty, I think we're going to get started here as we're almost to 5 o'clock. Good evening. My name is Cale. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy at the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us here this evening for the event, which is co-hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, the Building Industry Association of the Red River Valley, and the Moorhead Business Association. I'm joined this evening by Elizabeth from the BIA of the Red River Valley. So Elizabeth, I'll let you take it from there.
So first, on behalf of all three of our organizations and the members we serve, I would like to thank all of you for being here this evening. We are proud of the partnership between our three organizations and the opportunities that we are providing to voters to engage with all of you.
As we get started this evening, I would like to note that the Chamber does not endorse any candidates for elected office. We simply provide educational opportunities to our members in the community like this. So now let's just jump into the outline for this evening and kind of lay out the ground rules.
Each candidate will be allotted 2 minutes at the beginning of the program for opening remarks and 1 minute at the end of the program for closing remarks. During the question and answer section, all of you will be allotted 60 seconds to respond to the question. There is a timer located here and there. Upon each response, we will proceed down the line in the order that all of you are sitting and rotate who answers each question first.
Normally for these we do a question and answer online, but just with such a small audience, I think what we can do is if anybody has any specific questions, we can address those at the end. But we have a number of prepared questions for all of you that hopefully will cover a wide range of different things that will be of interest. So maybe just we'll start off here by kicking off opening remarks, and we'll start with Dave.
Thank you. I've served 4 years on the Moorhead City, Clay County Commission after serving 12 years as police chief in the city of Moorhead. Prior to that, I spent 28 years in public service as a law enforcement officer in the city of Little Rock. And during that time, I also was faculty at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock for 12 years. I am very focused on providing services to this community. It started off coming here as police chief and saying what a treasure we've got here, and a secret one, and a community that works together, a community that is prosperous, and is prosperous for the right reasons. We have right now a manageable crime issue that is arising, but it's a community with a lot of resources to deal with that. You have to have leadership that is adequate to the task, and that's what I think I've done the last 4 years. I've taken leadership positions on the Red River Regional Dispatch Center. I'm the chair. I'm currently the chair of the County Commission. I am the vice president of the Association of Minnesota Counties Public Safety Legislative Panel, and we come up with the priorities for the AMC during the legislative session. I've put a lot of energy into this. One of the things that happens with the County Commission is it becomes a full-time job. Most of us put in 20, 30 hours a week. I'm happy to do it. I want to do it for 4 more years. We've got a lot of things going in the right direction that we'll talk about, but my time's about up, so thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Well, hi, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the Chamber for inviting me to be part of the forum, and I do appreciate all of you being here. To start with, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself. As mentioned, I will be running for my second term as Clay County Commissioner in District 1, which is approximately 12,500 people in southeast Moorhead. Presently, most of my time on the commission is spent performing the duties that have been assigned to me by the Board of Commissioners. This involves about 20 active committees, mostly in the area of public health and human services. I also work with a few committees which involve soil and water resource management. Along with my individual assignments, I also am included in many of the other presentations, discussions, decisions we make as a full board, and I absolutely love my work. Outside of my Clay County duties, I'm still an active realtor, which I've been in the area for the last 36 years. I have a very dedicated support staff that assists me greatly. As a realtor, I'm also active in government affairs work both locally and at the state level, representing the Minnesota Realtors Association and the Building Industry Association of the Red River Valley. I'm a lifelong resident of Clay County and feel so fortunate that I've been able to serve as a commissioner, a chance to give back to this community, which has given me and my family so much over our lifetime. I look forward to answering your questions, and thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you. Joel?
Yes, thank you. Joel Paulson, running for Clay County Commission, District 5. I'm a lifelong resident of Clay County, born and raised here. My family lives here. My friends live here. This is just such a great community. We'll always be here, I think. That's given me a lot of insight as I've seen the city grow throughout the years and had to deal with certain issues, certain problems. I think I'm uniquely positioned for this position. I've spent 20 years as a civil engineer in Northwest Minnesota, working for numerous communities, over dozens of communities as their city engineer. So I'm very well aware of infrastructure problems, funding problems, and the need to have to work in partnership between cities, counties, state, and federal government. I was fortunate enough over the last 5 years to have led the FM diversion project, which we had significant success, both on the funding side, the procurement of a unique contracting mechanism, the first in the nation, testified in front of Congress concerning our work with the FM diversion. And now I'm looking to give back in a different aspect as the county commissioner. I've always felt like I need to dedicate a portion of my time to the community that has given me so much and my family. And I think my unique background of working within the municipal government throughout my career, as well as in joint partnership with the local communities, uniquely positions me for this office.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all for opening remarks here. And I should also mention that we are going to record this and be able to send this out beyond just the audience that's here in person. So just wanted to let you know that. And as we go through, we'll kind of bounce around to different folks for questions in an order. So I will turn it over to Elizabeth for our first question.
So just a reminder that the response time is 60 seconds for the question and answer round. So we'll start it off with housing, as that's a very popular topic. In 2023, a regional housing study was released by MetroCog. It suggested that the region needs an additional 16,000 housing units in the next 10 years, a diversified housing stock, and a regional approach to tackle our housing challenges and to encourage home ownership. What do you think is the Commission's role in helping to address this housing shortage in our region? We'll start with Joel.
Thank you. I think it's important for the county to work with the other political subdivisions on this issue. And this is a regional issue, not necessarily just a county issue, but Clay County can certainly play their role. I think a unique partnership with the city of Moorhead in looking at certain tax incentives, tax abatements, all those things will help to spur development on this side of the river, where it is a bit more expensive to build housing, due to the differences in the state building codes and those sorts of things. Those are also areas where we can advocate with our state legislators on maybe providing change or modifications to state laws that would allow us to have a comparable cost of construction in Clay County versus Cass County.
Great, thank you. Paul?
Thank you for the question. I think there's a two-part of its creation. The first one is we've been in a not necessarily always that feeling here in Fargo-Moorhead, but regionally and for a long time, a decline in the amount of new construction that we've been able to do, especially in the entry market. And as interest rates have gone back up, the building has become a little less, and also it's become, the prices in the meantime is, because supply and demand are going up, and it's becoming more and more difficult to have an entry-level home. The other piece of it is, I guess, would be hand in hand with interest rates. So them being at a higher level these days, everything's, it's getting more difficult. We have more people that are, I would be considered stay put, and that's because people like me and many others have low interest loans, so we aren't moving anymore, staying put. So as far as the county is concerned, I think the best we can do is make sure that we are talking to our partners. I want to be clear that social services and many of our nonprofits work very hard for housing affordability grants. Places like HRA, Section 8, trying to find resources, state investments, federal investments, to make sure that we have housing supports to keep people in their homes, number one. Number two, do our very, very best to help those that are in vulnerable positions or in positions of low income, to give them that opportunity for low investment housing.
Thank you. David?
Paul indicated we have an issue here that we're limited in what we can do as a county. One of the things we can do is, and when state funding is available for it, is to assist in people most in need who are unhoused. We have and Paul's our liaison with the Housing Authority for Clay County, and that also oversees a lot of the Moorhead public housing. We can keep those functioning at a high rate, giving decent, affordable housing to people who are most in need. The rest of it is the same national problems Paul outlined a minute ago that are hitting all of us. I'm not going to give up my 3.25% loan and downsize. I'm part of the problem, I guess. But we've got these things. We've got to encourage building of new homes, and we've got to have affordable housing for people to get loans when they want to transition either into a starter home or into a home for people who are retired and no longer empty nesters. Thank you.
Great. Now we're just going to turn to something very similar. Obviously, housing is something business owners and along with a lot of other folks are curious about, and so maybe just diving a little bit more into business. Maybe just talking a little bit more about what do you see as the Commission's role in creating an environment which allows businesses to grow and thrive, and then I have a couple follow-ups as well to that. So maybe Paul, if you just want to start off by just talking about the Commission's role in that environment for businesses.
Sure. Well, I think generally we have to do our part in creating an inviting community. People that are living here, making sure they have safe roads, easy accesses, a comfortable place to be. I think we work hand in hand on many things, whether it's support for our school systems, working with addressing a lot of social needs within the schools through our social services, making sure that they're good schools to be part of. And I think between the schools and the roads and the way the community with its zoning practices are given the best opportunity that they can for people to want to come this direction. As far as the businesses, we have 16 acres downtown being taken apart with new opportunities, and I think the city's fully engaged and doing the best we can to promote economic development.
Great, thanks. David?
I'm the vice president of the Lake Agassiz Regional Library Board, and we're excited. We're part of what's happening downtown Moorhead. But one of the things we've got to bear in mind as county commissioners is it is not just Moorhead. We've got thriving towns in our rest of our county, and we have a rural section that needs to have accommodations built in when we look at businesses. There can't be any grocery store deserts out there where people have to drive 20 miles to get groceries or 30 miles. We need to encourage our smaller communities too. And we're moving towards that. We're looking at right now quarterly meetings to look at the economic development of the rest of the county. And we're going to commit to that. It's important that we see downtown Moorhead thrive. It's the center of our universe in this county. But we also need to take care of the rest of the county on these issues.
Thank you. Joel?
Thank you. I think, we'd be remiss if we don't talk about living next door to one of the most business-friendly states in the United States, North Dakota. There's drastic differences between operating a business in Minnesota and North Dakota, and those differences need to continue to be addressed with the Minnesota State Legislature. I think our border cities legislation is good that we have in place. It doesn't cover all of Clay County, but it does cover some of our communities here. But that needs to be strengthened, and the Clay County Commission needs to work with the city of Moorhead to have a legislative strategy that addresses those business disparities between the two states. And I think focusing on that will even the playing field, and you'll see organic growth that otherwise would have happened in North Dakota happen in Clay County.
Great, thank you. Maybe just as a quick follow-up to the economic development side of things, just talk maybe a little bit more about incentives and how, what your view is on incentives and, what the county's role is on incentives to attract and retain businesses. So we'll start off again with Paul.
Okay. Well, I think, I'll put it this way, the most recent meeting that we had with the cities, and at that point it was with Moorhead, Dilworth, and representative from Barnesville. And it's already been suggested earlier, but it's about having that cohesiveness together, to work together for lobbying down in St. Paul to get, Deed in particular, engaged into this area and know that Moorhead is one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and to this area is the hub that relies off that business growth. For Clay County, we're the hub. I'm just saying that for it to spill over onto this side. The other part is being able to look at foundations and other sources for grants. And once again, I'm kind of repeating a little bit here, but on the housing side, again, through our social services, and then also in other grants through like West Central Initiative for Small Business.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
David?
You want to incentivize businesses into our community. That's got to be done with a unified effort by the city of Moorhead, by the county, but most of all by the state of Minnesota. We, for years, were not even recognized as a metropolitan area by the state. I'm happy to say the chamber, along with the EDC and Clay County, got the deed director in here, gave him a little tour, and we were moved up to, we're now the second largest metropolitan area in the state. We don't get the funding that we deserve on that. And this is something that we need to go to St. Paul, lobby for it, and work for it, so we have the cash to provide serious and genuine Renaissance tax relief and incentives to bring people into the new downtown Moorhead area. And that's something that we are already committed to, as well as the quarterly meetings with our rural cities to make sure that they're not left out.
Great, thank you. Joel?
Yeah, I think working with the chamber, working with the other communities, this is a regional issue. And, again, talking about the disparities between the two states, we need to address the playing field, basically. We have a vibrant community, very diversified, which is great. We've been very resilient from macroeconomic forces, and we need to continue that. I think we're sitting very well. The ability to attract businesses and bring them into this community is of paramount importance. If we want to continue to grow, we need to do it in a smart and reasonable way so that we don't impact taxes. And I think we've seen that on the North Dakota side quite drastically. We don't want to repeat that same situation on the Clay County side.
Okay, thank you. So jumping back to housing a little bit, this next question is a bit of a doozy, so if you need me to repeat anything, let me know. So the last legislative session, Minnesota lawmakers put forward a statewide mandate that would impact the zoning code. It basically included specific requirements for the creation of more condos, duplexes, small apartment buildings, and cottage clusters in previously single-family unit areas. So the first question would be, would you support these sort of changes to zoning law if they are tailored to the local community? And what are your views on statewide zoning codes in comparison to local control? I'll start with David on this one.
Thank you. Would I support it? No. Even if there's taking local consideration into it. The people in the city of Moorhead, in Barnesville, in Glendon, in Holly, in Dilworth, and the citizens of Clay County have elected local government entities to help them design their communities. We are very different than the metro area. And in fact, indeed, there are a lot of differences within the metro area. And people have their local representation there to make sure that their needs are met and their market is addressed. If there is market for housing, smaller, more clustered, if the market is there, and I think it is, then let the market construct those buildings. Encourage, through zoning, to keep things in check to where everybody gets their needs met, but you're not having it dictated to you from 350 miles away by people that have never been to your city.
Thank you. Joel?
Well, I think this is a great question. I certainly am an advocate of local control, especially when it comes to planning and zoning related issues. I don't think the state legislature should be mandating planning and zoning rules and regulations. I have served on the Moorhead Planning Committee as well as the Clay County Planning Committee. Clay County, of course, has the planning jurisdiction in more of the rural area. City of Moorhead has the planning jurisdiction within the city. The city's already doing what the legislature had put into place. So if you look at what the city of Moorhead does and how they zone their different residential areas, they're already intermixing high-density multifamily into single-family neighborhoods. It seems to be working out fine, but again, that's the city's decision, not necessarily mandated by the state.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you. Yes, I am absolutely against this. Totally believe in local control, especially for the area we live in. This issue arises in the cities mainly. It's an outcry of the city itself of Minneapolis and the outlying suburbs that are crowding out certain types of building to increase their tax valuations and receipts off of property tax. I agree with both of them, and Joel, your statement there about Moorhead. I'm on the Moorhead Planning Commission at this time, and we absolutely have opened the door for all sites of multiple lots, and working with the county. I think we're very friendly to trying our best to give home occupation businesses ability to happen out in our areas, rural areas, as well as accommodate other housing developments in a way that makes sense and it's safe, and we have the road structure to support it.
Great. Just sticking in the vein of workforce here a little bit, Clay County and across the region, there's a lot of different partners and partnerships. And obviously, we all hear that workforce is a significant challenge. Can each of you just touch a little bit more on how the commission can leverage these relationships and maybe take some initiatives to or strategies to help attract and retain a quality workforce to the region? And we'll start with Joel on this one.
Yeah, I get a minute to talk about workforce, huh? But, this has been a topic that's been around for decades. It's always been a challenge to address workforce needs here in the Fargo-Moorhead community. I think you start by addressing your infrastructure and your community, keeping it safe, having a community that is attractive to young families and families that would need to move in to meet the workforce issue. I also think it's an education issue. So many of our young folks are, just have the blinders on, and we're going to college. We're not going to trade school. And the Moorhead School District has addressed this. NDSCS has addressed this. So as you had mentioned, there's a lot of partners that have been working on this issue for a long time. I think the county's continued support of those initiatives of education is paramount to ensuring that our community continues to be vibrant. And I think as we grow and we're a fast-growing community, this is going to be a challenge for many, many years in the future, and something we need to keep our eyes on.
Thank you. Paul.
Workforce. Well, first of all, I want to give a big thank you to the Chamber. Your Ignite program and other things, you collaborate with Clay County and the city. I think we try to work the best we can together to try to deal with this. And I think the program, especially, I think it's still called Ignite, I hope. Anyway, is just seems to be right on track of many of the things we need to do. As far as our education system, Joel mentioned a couple of things I totally agree with. What does the Fargo-Moorhead area look like? What does Clay County look like on the road infrastructure, the way the city lays out? All these things invite people to want to live here, and hopefully that generates more people coming in to support the services we have. I think over time, I think there's going to have to be childcare is a big piece. We're going to have to address that. It's a big part of the issue, and I think that's going to be a hard one to solve. And I think over time, more and more pressure is going to be put on businesses themselves to be a greater piece of solving that problem.
Great. Thank you. David.
Well, Paul stole my answer. One of the issues we have, and we saw pre-COVID and post-COVID, the two worker families have been reduced because people cannot afford childcare. We lost another 142 positions for childcare in our county over the week. Duluth had, I think, 3 different facilities closed down simultaneously. This is a critical issue to allow people to go into the workforce, be productive for us, and not have to worry about who's taking care of their children. There is talk on state funding. There was some directed, not near enough, but that's also something the county needs to be very vocal in, because our social services people and the licensure on this, we are an integral part of getting it through and making it work. And if we can encourage on that, that will address a lot of the immediate needs we have, along with the school system, our great career academy, the things we've got going on here, along with all our universities.
Thank you. So you kind of started talking about the next question that I was going to ask. But as you know, childcare is a major concern for families in Clay County, Minnesota, and across the nation. What tools does the commission have to address this issue, and how would you go about using them? I'll start with Paul first.
Well, it's just a tough answer. And it's not an easy one. It's going to take time. One thing that really bothers me, though, about, and I don't know why, is the regulation in Minnesota. I think they're a piece of this, and I know they're doing it being heartfelt to protect kids, but I also think the regulation has gotten so high, it seems like they want sinners. And for this problem to really resolve itself, we have to have home daycare too. And the people I talk with in the community that used to have home daycare, they gave up because of the regulation that it takes to do it, and it's just not worth their time. So I'm going to put a little bit of this on the state, and yet we have a local, we have a local commitment we have to put in effort in trying to resolve it locally too.
Thank you, David.
The focus that Minnesota has on creating large centers, that's great if they're willing to sustain those organizations. Ideally, you work towards making part of the school system, public education. We could put, and you look at Glendon, their prime example, they have childcare there in their school system. And the kids transition from the childcare into the schools that they've been at since they were 3 or 4 years old, 2 or 3 years old. A lot of times they have lunch with their siblings who are in the schools, the elementary school, and they're in the childcare. It's really seamless. And it on a very small basis, it's a great idea, and it's something that should be replicated. But you can't, to have it in-home, we do need to get rid of the truly oppressive and ineffective system the state set up for us. It's hard to get people fingerprinted and backgrounded and get the homes inspected. There's just a myriad of bureaucratic nonsense these folks have to go through.
Thank you. Joel?
This is a really difficult question, of course, and another one of these issues that has been talked about for decades. And I do think it has gotten to the point where it really isn't financially feasible to run childcare facilities anymore on the Minnesota side. We have a number of great ones in Fargo, so we're fortunate that we live within a metropolitan community where you can find some childcare, but it's always going to be pressure. I know that for a fact. I have 4 kids myself, and raising them was difficult, just making ends meet and trying to pay our child care bill and be able to have 2 working parents. So I'm fully aware of the issue. What can the county do? I mean, I'm going to say continue to advocate with other political subdivisions on this issue, but really put pressure on our state representatives and legislators so that they know that this is an issue that our constituents are talking about. It's preventing workforce development. It's a challenge for families. It's always going to be something that we need to continue to focus on and address.
Thank you. Now we're going to shift gears here to infrastructure. Obviously, there's a lot of construction going on right now. I recall when we had our State of the Cities earlier this year, the mayor of Moorhead wore orange because there's going to be a lot of orange around the city of Moorhead and across Clay County due to all the infrastructure that's being put in, the downtown redevelopment and things like that. So maybe if you just want to talk a little bit more about the largest infrastructure challenges facing the community and what role does the county have playing in that? So looking really long-term, what are some more investments that need to be made in the county for infrastructure, and how can the county assist with that? And we'll start with David.
One of the biggest demands we have is maintaining a road system for our rural portions of the county. That doesn't relieve us of the obligation to meet other investments. The 11th Street underpass, we've got $1.5 million in that. We are participants in addressing county road needs, and we're running into obstacles like the gravel trucks that are running to Fargo to build things like the Amazon Center and some of the diversion work are tearing up our county roads. We need to figure out how to replace them and repair them at a quicker rate. The same is true with some of our bridges. Rebuilding a bridge is an expensive problem, and we've got to work with our neighbors to the west to get it done. So we're having to look at dealing with some of those issues. We have state funding and we have a 5-year plan set up, and it's overseen by a very competent county engineer and his staff. But there's still some curves that we get thrown to us, and we need to have state funding and assistance in meeting those needs to deal with them.
Thank you. Joel?
Yeah, so infrastructure is the backbone of any community, and it's important that you're not only maintaining your infrastructure, but you're planning reasonably for growth. The ability to leverage federal, state, and local funds for any type of infrastructure project is absolutely critical. I think we have kind of missed the boat around here with a lot of the federal dollars that have been circulating around there. There's a lot of grant dollars that could be looked at to help supplement and offset, property tax as an option to pay for these things. But it's also important that once we build them, we also understand the long-term costs for the maintenance as well. That's often overlooked by municipal government and county government, and that's usually ends up being a larger cost than the initial capital cost. So it's really working with the engineering department to do that long-term planning, focusing on federal and state grant dollars to supplement our local tax contributions, and then ensuring that we have reasonable plans in place to accommodate the anticipated growth that we have.
Thank you. Paul?
Both good answers and really contain a lot of my belief. The first thing I'll say is I have the highest regard to Clay County Highway Department. Their work is top-notch. I think their 5-year plan that we just approved makes total sense. I think there's, as Dave mentioned, there's a lot of weight on us, especially with all the gravel coming out of Clay County and North Dakota. We aren't getting the proper amount of revenue for the aggregate going on the other side. And it's an example, if you're aware of County Road 26, we've had to redo that road much quicker than ever expected due to the travel across to the other side. So somehow we need some more equity within that. I do agree. It's totally about leverage too, and working with our legislators, not only congressional people, for that awareness to get all the infrastructure dollars we can get through the Fed, and then on the state side through bonding and working with DOT. I want to also give thanks to MetroCog that worked with us in planning on projects in the area. So that there is a plan, as you talked, for that growth going out. They just approved what the project plans may be out to 2050 just last week. So there's a lot of things out there on the radar.
Thank you. So sticking on the topic of infrastructure, there are many rural and small communities in the county experiencing water insecurity due to supply and quality. What are your views on the proposed West Central Regional Water District project? Do you see it creating economic opportunities for Clay County and beyond? And are you in support of the project? I'll start with Joel.
Absolutely. I also serve on Moorhead Public Service, and our entity has been involved in some of the discussions about rural water in Clay County. It's absolutely essential, one from a resiliency standpoint, but also from a health standpoint. Many of the small communities in Clay County have high arsenic levels. It's not healthy. We need clean drinking water as kind of a basic human need. And the ability to regionalize water systems is the most cost-effective way to address this issue with the smaller communities. And Moorhead is uniquely situated to be able to provide a hub for that type of a system. I'm also advocating for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project that will provide that long-term drought resiliency, not only for Moorhead, but potentially for the remainder of rural Clay County as well. Again, that's a regionalization project. That's where you get the biggest bang for your dollars. And we need to absolutely continue to be a part of that and help push that project forward.
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, I'm very pleased we're moving forward with West Central, the Water District. Couldn't be soon enough. We're so far behind. Cass County did this completely years and years ago. And for it finally to come down our way is just a great opportunity, and will not only improve safe drinking water, but just the quality of life in general through the whole county. This is going to be a long process. It's going to be many years. And as we build the infrastructure out, but we already have two communities, Georgetown and Felton, that are trying to get the fast track on it as we take water down from the Climax area into Clay County. Over time, as Joel kind of alluded to also, we're going to need other sources of water. There's not enough pulling out of that area. As we come south, well, you're going to have to find other aquifers to pull from, maybe the Missouri River, as you mentioned, and as it comes into the Red River, and other aquifers on the North Dakota as well as Minnesota side. The Buffalo Aquifer itself is very big, but a very hard one to draw water from for long term. It'll deplete itself out. So we may, when we get locally here, be looking at more public service, is to be potentially one of the suppliers locally.
Thank you. David?
A lot has been covered already, but this was a great idea. It came from, I believe, Norman County?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, and yep.
and Norman. And, it came to our attention, and something we immediately wanted to be a part of, and we funded to buy into the team. Our report last week showed they're working on bylaws, putting a board together. We're ready to see them function. This happened in North Dakota years ago. There's rural water everywhere in North Dakota. And this is one of the things where you have to gently remind our friends in St. Paul that not every place is a metro. And there are people out here that need services in outstate. And it's essential that we continue to work and lobby to support our water districts and this initiative to make sure that we can complete them and expand them. This is something that's going to go on into the future indefinitely. So we need to keep working at providing water, safe water, to all the residents of Clay County.
Well, sticking on the water infrastructure, obviously, in our region, sometimes we don't have enough water and sometimes we have too much water. And so wanted to dive into that a little bit, the flood mitigation aspect, talking through, not necessarily just the Moorhead component, but the Clay County component overall, the legislative ask we had last session and sessions prior, and then kind of maybe touching on a little bit about what's the county's role in developing this flood protection, and what are some strategies to get that state funding? So for this one, we're just double check to make sure. We'll start with Paul.
Well, I've been a big proponent of diversion for years, since the beginning. My wife at that time worked as a secretary for Mayor Wallaker. I was at the first meetings, and I remember when, at that time, Senator Dorgan, Senator Dorgan came to the meeting and said, you know what, you're going to be asking for flood protection, and in a few years, you're going to be asking for water from the Missouri. And it sure happened. But, we need to finish this project on plan. I think the Diversion Authority's done the best job they can. They're doing a the best, fairest job they can to make the farmers or the landowners to the south whole as best they can. We need, and try to avoid eminent domain, and get the project done for that, that mitigation processes. On the Minnesota side, all we can do is collectively, along with Moorhead, Lake County, keep harping at the city to get our fair share that we wanted to be part of on this side of the river to obligate, to help with the obligations of the diversion. And we can only keep shouting. It's unfortunate this last year now again with the big summer rains, we've had up north and south in Minnesota, bonding's going to be, it's tough again. I'll pass with that.
Thank you. David?
The funding that we need on the Minnesota side has to come from the state. The original Joint Powers Agreement that set up the Diversion Authority states that Minnesota will provide that funding. And we're certainly not going to put it on the levy. So we've got a half dozen projects that need to be completed before the diversion gets certified in 2027 and complete the project. We're on track, we're on time. The diversion's moving forward, and Minnesota's projects can't delay it. We've got a lot of things going for us right now. The Corps of Engineers has done a remarkable job setting up the big structures. We're getting the ditch dug, and we're going to be ready to go. And you don't want to have Minnesota projects that are underfunded or not funded at all slowing down the progress of the Diversion Authority. So this is another instance where we're going to have to be very present and very audible in St. Paul to get this done.
Thank you. Joel?
Oh, boy.
I don't know if this is necessarily flood protection. This is kind of your area for a while, so.
Yeah, so it's absolutely imperative that the remaining dollars that were committed by Clay County and the city of Moorhead are received by the diversion project. I mean, right now, it's about $50 million that the two entities had committed to advocating the legislature to bring it in. The real problem is in order for the project to be done on time, you need to do these projects, as Mr. Ebbinger had mentioned, now. And so the money has to be coming from the Diversion Authority, which is North Dakota taxpayer dollars, which has obviously been causing some controversy between members on the diversion board lately. The county and the city made a concerted effort, but I think we can do a better job of doing that and advocating, getting out in front of this issue in advance. It needs to come next legislative session, or there won't be any more Minnesota projects left to do in order to expend those dollars. And that creates a hole in the diversion's budget of $50 million that will have to be covered by our North Dakota entities. So there's a lot of things there that I think the county needs to step up along with the city as members of the Diversion Authority to ensure that they do the best job possible this next Minnesota legislative session to get those dollars here and get them spent and get these county projects moving along.
Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about taxes. So voters across the nation in Clay County are feeling strained due to increasing prices and are seeking relief from elected officials. How do you see the commission working to maintain a strong level of government services while balancing the tax burden on residents? We will start with David.
The last figures I got from the state of Minnesota showed that we were 78th of 85 counties in the lowest per capita tax rate for our Clay County citizens. On charges for service, we were 85 out of 85. We were the lowest in the state. And yet we're the fourth fastest growing county in the state. And we've had many projects, important projects. We got a ribbon on two of them, the detox facility and the new DMV yesterday. I would love to sit here and tell you it's the brilliance and the tenacity of of the members of the commission that do that, but it's our staff. And we give them our direction. We tell them where we want them to go and what we need to do. And ultimately, we have the final say in the budget, in the levy. But they make it work for us. And that's one of the things you have to remember about the commission. It's not always the issue. It's the tools you have to work with. And if you've maintained a good staff that's reliable, that has integrity and has intelligence, and we have, good things can happen. And you can meet the needs of your citizens at a reasonable expenditure. And I went in and voted yesterday at the government center and heard people talking about their taxes at the window. And I know it's hard, and we're going to do what we've done since I've been on this and since way before. We're going to keep the levy down to exactly what we need, not what we want.
Thank you. Joel?
Yeah, I'm a true believer in efficient government and transparency when it comes to tax use. The constituency can only afford a certain capacity of taxes. We all know that. So where does the revenue come from then? The state and federal, supplemental dollars. And I do believe we can do a better job of funneling more state dollars into this county, as well as more federal dollars to help offset and keep the taxes low. I also agree with Mr. Ebinger. We do have one of the lowest tax rates in the state of Minnesota. And that's probably, I'm speculating, because we're in this metro community and we're so close to North Dakota that we tend to collaborate and find efficiency as a regional entity, where some other counties that are more rural might have a more difficult time, getting the resources that we have in the metro area. So it's continued partnerships with the local communities to do regional type works that help the residents of Clay County. That will continue to keep taxes low, and the focus has to be on maintaining balanced budgets, providing proper service that's appropriate, and then managing growth as we move forward, supplementing with federal and state dollars.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with both of them. I'm very, I've been through 2 budget processes now, and again, to see, I guess, the work that's being done in the county, which is immense, the mandates that are set by the state, mainly in the area of social services, our biggest department, and then the other demands that just occur by wear and tear on our roads and bridges. And while all these costs continue to elevate, in a high inflationary period, our staff does an incredible job. And it was mentioned, we sort of have this level as best we can to keep it as one of the low, as low as we can, and be one of these lower counties in the state on the levy. And I've been very impressed how our departments fine-tune what they can do to the very best ability they can, and still put out quality services. And yes, I agree, finding other ways to leverage more funds, whether it's state or onto the feds, I think is imperative. But I think we do a very good job. And any number is probably too much, but I do think that anytime we can stay below 5% these days, I think we're doing well.
Great, thank you for that. Going to kind of those government services, maybe just emergency services, obviously, I know the legislature did a little bit of, they addressed a little bit of this in the last legislative session with trying to get emergency services in rural parts of Minnesota. And so maybe, talking a little bit more about emergency services and the shortages that maybe are occurring throughout our county, but then also talking about the workforce shortage. Obviously, I don't think that any community isn't looking for a police officer, a firefighter, first responders. And so can you just talk a little bit more about how the county and other entities can work to attract a workforce that is high quality and is very needed to fill these roles and that. So start off with Joel.
Yeah, that's a great question, and maybe I'll focus a little bit on the law enforcement piece. I know that's an issue for the city of Moorhead, retaining police officers. I mean, I've heard numbers that they're around 50-60% of where they should be as far as officers are concerned. That's a real problem, and Moorhead's just as much a part of Clay County as anywhere else. And some of the reasons for that is we have West Fargo and Fargo that have their own police academies, and they're letting students in where they have different credentials on the North Dakota side. If I was going to be a police officer now going into that field, I would certainly go to Fargo and West Fargo before I get my 2-year degree in Minnesota, have to go spend my own money to get trained in Alexandria, and then come back here to get employment. So it's a real issue, and again, it's a regional issue. We need to be talking with the city of Fargo, the city of West Fargo, as well as the city of Moorhead to get a handle on that particular issue. I think we're seeing fire department in Fargo Fire Department. I mean, the salaries need to be increased. So how do you do that? Maintain the appropriate level of service, and not have to necessarily increase your tax levy significantly. But at the bottom line, we need to have proper emergency services and response times. It's absolutely critical as we grow as a region. We are going to have to deal with problems that you see in bigger cities as we grow. More crime, and all of that needs to be offset and mitigated by ensuring that we have proper staffing and we're paying our officers and emergency service personnel appropriate amounts.
Thank you. Paul.
Yeah, well, I think a big piece, no question, our rural area, there's yet to be a real void out there. I think we work very hard to collaborate the best we can when it comes to our local services out of Fargo Moorhead to help work in the rural areas. I think I hear from Martinsville quite often the need of another ambulance service down there. Not service, but another ambulance to help the services to get out. And they're trying for state dollars to help them along with that. And so again, on the legislative side, we work with our communities trying to fulfill the needs. I've been very impressed with the collaboration we have with in the metro here with Fargo Moorhead, West Fargo, and our Red River Dispatch, and the work that our law enforcement does together. I think good communication. I think we're helping save lives, protecting people, and it's in that joint collaboration, and if, there are more efficiencies. I will say we're very, very fortunate. Our sheriff's department, we're doing well. We're keeping up right now, and I hope there's a very good working culture over there, and we've been fortunate. We've been able to keep our people in place.
Thank you. David.
This is my wheelhouse, and you're giving me a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and narrow it down to two things. First, my experience as a chief. Moorhead did not keep up with a lot of things during my tenure and the tenure of the chief before me. The primary was the number of officers we needed. So when the famine came, the organization was already pretty skinny. Chief Monroe has made some good steps in getting some state funding to get people who don't have the proper degree to get them paid and on the payroll as cadets and in a program that'll get them to skill school with a paycheck coming in. That's how Fargo does it, West Fargo. That's how most states do it, is you get hired, you go to your skill training as an employee. So that's something they need to do. Right now, we are looking in our legislative priorities at rural EMS and ambulance service. We need federal changes to Medicare so that they will pay for these ambulance runs in rural areas, and that they won't require transport. A lot of these come out there and do treatment at the scene or help pick somebody up that can't get up, and they don't get paid for the run. It's a huge issue, and I'm doing a real disservice here. I could talk for 30 minutes about it, but I'll let it ride. But trust me, I know the issue, I know the challenges, and I'm engaged as the assistant chair of our public safety with AMC to get some of them addressed.
Thank you. So now we're going to kind of go into a more general question segment. This kind of deals with your style of how you approach things. So when faced with challenges or differing opinions, what strategies do you use to build coalitions and reach consensus? We'll start with Paul.
Well, number one, I have respect, and I try to be a listener first. It's important to hear the different points of view, and then I think work toward the solution. And I think it's fine to state problems, but I think the focus needs to be on the solution. So I hope I'm answering the question toward what you're asking. But it truly is. It's to find, it's an overused word, common ground, and look for the solution. What are the pieces going to be that you can kind of come together on? But that's pretty general, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. David?
I've never seen it so tense in public service, and I've been in public service for 44 years. I've never seen people so afraid. And one of the things we've done here, we don't scare people. I think we try and listen to them. I think we try and respond to their needs. And when we can't, I think they're given a civil explanation on what the issues are. But so many people are predicating their conduct, their responses, and even their beliefs on what scares them. And we can't do that as governmental entities. We've got to be there to support, to listen to, and to provide them with the information they need to understand why we've made the decisions we've made. If we can't give them that, maybe we're not thinking things through on our end. So in the overall thing is simply respect the people you're serving. Be honest with them. Be candid with them and have some integrity. And it shows. That'll work through. People trust you if they see that you've got integrity, that you are willing to communicate with them, and that you want to serve them.
Thank you. Joel?
So I'm a collaborator at heart, and I think my track record speaks for itself. I went down and talked to folks in southern Clay County and southern Cass County when no other public officials would, in regards to the FM diversion project. I was instrumental in assisting and brokering a settlement that was in the best interest of the landowners in southern Clay County. Probably one of the most difficult discussions I've had in my entire life. And the reason it was successful is because I kept an open mind and I put myself in their shoes and I realized what they were giving up. It's not just a home and a farmstead and land, it's their entire lifestyle. And once you start to realize that, you can start to come to meaningful mitigation programs and hopefully find something that will compensate. I think that's a great example of how government should be interacting with affected constituents and residents and even other political subdivisions. And I'll continue to do that. It's just in my nature. That's the way to get things done and get them done in the cheapest, most reasonable way.
Perfect. So I know we've talked a lot about a variety of different things this evening, and maybe just, wanted to reinforce this point a little bit is, as, it's been mentioned multiple times, is we're a fast-growing community, the fastest-growing community outside of the metro, and I think there's a lot of growth in sight as well. So as we continue to grow and as a community, what opportunities do you see for our region? And then maybe list out some challenges that also come with this kind of growth. And we'll start with David on this one.
In my college years, my family moved to Dallas, Texas, and they lived in a metro area. I went out to where they lived, and there were cotton fields. 3 years later, it's simply, if you've been to the Dallas-Fort Worth metro, it is a metropolitan area that's 100 miles across. I hope that doesn't happen here. But I think as we progress, particularly with the diversion, when it's in place, the businesses and the corporations that don't want to be here now, it's not because it snows. They don't care about snow. It's because it floods. You don't want to build a factory, or you don't want to build your headquarters in a place where your employees may get flooded out of their homes. 2027, it's a moot argument. You can see what happened to Winnipeg following their putting the diversion in. We have growth coming at us. We've got to be prepared. We have a school system that is the best in the region, 2 school systems that are the best in the region. We have to support them, and we have to fund them for growth. And we've got to be ready to provide infrastructure, provide housing, all the things we've talked about tonight as the market grows. And that's a challenge. And there's no way in a minute, I couldn't give you all the answers in an hour, but there's no way in a minute we're going to go beyond that other than say, I recognize what the challenges are ahead, and there are more opportunities than challenges.
Joel?
Yeah, thank you. So a little known fact, Moorhead used to be larger than Fargo, many, many years ago, of course. So the question is, why is Moorhead smaller than Fargo, and why do we see significant growth on the North Dakota side? A lot of it has to do with state rules and regulations, but I think one of the largest drivers is the income tax disparity between Minnesota and North Dakota. And there's been discussions in the past, but nobody or entity has ever made a significant push at the Minnesota legislature for the idea of a tax-exempt zone. You see them all around the United States where you have metropolitan communities on state lines. It is not unheard of to have tax exemption districts. It is something I believe Clay County should be pushing for. I certainly believe that if it were to be put into place, that Moorhead would grow exponentially, Clay County would grow exponentially, and the number of tax dollars coming from Clay County would far exceed the cost of a income tax exemption zone. So it's certainly something I want to focus on, and I think it should be a legislative priority for both the city of Moorhead and Clay County as a whole, and it could be done through the border city legislation that's already in place.
Thank you. Paul?
I think we have to remain and continue to be a welcoming community. I think Moorhead, the opportunity to grow is a lot to do not only with business, but it's the people that surround our community. It's how we live, it's our lifestyle, how we engage, the great education that we have. I'm a spud, and I'm always going to be a spud, and I think that thrives in our living. I think it's okay that we're smaller. I can live with that. I think it's okay that we can grow off the growth of North Dakota with our taxes, but it's a place we can live, and I think a community that thrives upon itself, and I think with that business, whatever amount, and we do have to help ourselves with the state, I agree. But, it's pretty hard to go up against the metro down in the Twin Cities. So I think we do what we do best. We integrate, we use people. I be aware of our mosaic that it's becoming of different cultures in this region. Celebrate it, work with it, and be a part of something new. And I think as long as we do that, we're a great, exciting place to live.
Great, thank you. So this next question has a short response. If you had to describe our community in 2 words, what 2 words would you choose? Starting with Joel.
Hardworking and resilient.
Paul.
Great work ethic and integrity.
David.
Compassion and endurance.
Thank you.
Great. Well, as we wrap up here, just want to maybe, is there anything that we missed? We cover a wide variety of topics. So I think we covered the high level. Obviously, we know that a minute to respond to some of these issues is a little quick, but we just really appreciate you all joining us. So as we close out this, I just want to start off with closing comments. And so we'll allot each of you 1 minute for some closing comments. And for this one, we'll start with Paul, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, just again, thank you. I appreciate being part of this. I really enjoyed listening to the two with me. And even as I sat here, I was growing and hearing things that we're doing well and things that we could be doing better. So again, having that listening ear, I feel extremely fortunate. And a thank you to everybody for the opportunity that I know, unless write-in votes outweigh me in the election, I get to serve 4 more years. And to that I say a big thank you to the community. I love what I'm doing here. And I want to make sure that people know they can call me or text me anytime they want. Paul Krabanoff, you write it down, 701-799-0369. Give me a call, let's talk. And I just love to serve the people in Clay County. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
I love this community. I came here from my hometown that I love dearly and served for 28 years, where I went to school and graduate school and taught. And I thought this would be a layover station. I've been here 16 years now, and I love it. I want to serve it. I've spent my entire life working to serve the people in the community around me. This was the first time I came and felt the kind of response, the gratitude and the support that I had in my entire career. And we stayed. I joke about it. My wife and I made the decision to stay in February. And if you're going to decide to stay in Moorhead, Minnesota in February, it's a commitment. And I'm committed, and I look forward to 4 more years of serving the citizens of Clay County.
Thank you. Joel.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to the Chamber and for having us here. I mean, this is a great opportunity to get our voices heard about our ideas. The third term I would have used for our community is innovation. You know, I'm a very innovative person, and I've always looked for solutions to very, very difficult problems. I have a proven track record of success when it comes to extremely difficult problems. We're no doubt going to be challenged with continuing difficult problems at the county, whether it be how to fund services, how to deal with societal issues that are impacting our community, and how do we deal with growth. And I think that's a really big issue that we need to focus on here in Clay County, and we need to do it right. We've seen other communities nearby that have not handled that very appropriately, and it's fallen on special assessments and high taxes. And people are leaving some of the other local communities because of the significant growth that happens so fast. So I think it's extremely important that we manage that appropriately. We don't get out ahead of ourselves, that we have long-term strategic plans, and that's the way to grow. Not in a reactive fashion, but in a proactive fashion. And if I'm elected, I certainly will put my time and talents towards appropriately managing that growth the best I can with the one voice I have on the commission.
Well, thank you. Thank you all again for participating in tonight's forum, and to those of you that attended tonight, thank you, and for running as well. It's a big job, so appreciate it.
Yeah, and just to close out, the chamber is really leaning into civic engagement overall, and just really trying to provide more opportunities for folks to get to know the candidates. So obviously, we host events like this, but in addition to that, we have our votefmwf.org, which is a nonpartisan election resource designed to empower local community members with current information on candidates. And voting information, polling location, all that great stuff. So just would encourage folks to visit that and encourage you to share that out with your networks. Again, like I said at the beginning, we're going to upload this recording to that Vote FMWF website so folks can review this event. And we'll be hosting a number of other events like this on the 8th of October. We'll be hosting a Moorhead City Council Forum. On the 15th of October, a Dilworth City Council Forum. And then on October 23rd, our candidate Cracker Barrel event in Dilworth, which is an opportunity for folks to vote or to visit with voters and connect with candidates in a speed networking type of face-to-face interaction. So would invite all of you candidates and the folks that are in attendance to join us for those events.
Thank you, and have a great evening.